Hey, what's up, guys? This is Rich. We're here with a very special treat for you. It's almost time for the Revolution. The launch of WWE 13 comes out tomorrow. Of course, you've read our review by now, but we wanted to give you some more about the game and actually do basically a live walkthrough of everything the game has to offer. I'm here with Corey and Brian from THQ.
Rich.
And we're going to just dive right into it, guys. So let's start off with just basic gameplay, basic match, you know, and we're going to be playing live here as you guys watch us, so you'll be able to see what's going on here. Now, you guys actually left most things the same, right?
By and large, yeah. You know, the biggest, probably change we made to gameplay is just, kind of, fixing a lot of bugs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a much more polished experience this year, over 12, and just making some refinements here and there as far as animation, tuning, and blending. But I think when players pick up the game and when they have that first match, they're definitely going to notice just how buttery smooth, the gameplay experience is this year.
Sure.
I think it's a lot more work. Sorry to interrupt. I think it's a lot more work under the hood versus like
Yeah.
splashy, features you might see on the back of box from like that. I mean, we spent a lot of time making sure that hit detection, targeting is really strong. People have heard over and over again about our spectacular moments and our catch finishers and things like that. They're brand new to the game. So I think under the hood, when you feel and play the game, it's going to feel different. It's going to feel smooth. You might not be able to pinpoint what it is, but there's been a lot of work to really improve that tech over last year.
Let's say there's somebody out there. By the way, you guys are looking at the full roster. A lot of these guys you actually have to unlock as you play the game.
Majority of the Attitude Era guys are unlocked. I think we only have 4 open by default, so those are a lot of the guys. There's also some current day guys that you unlocked throughout the game as well.
And we'll get into details on like kind of how you unlock that. It's through the objectives in the Attitude Era mode. But the one thing I wanted to ask you guys is sort of actually, suppose I didn't play WWE 12. What's the best way you would describe sort of the gameplay? Because you guys made a seismic shift with WWE 12. Like, if you were to sort of encapsulate it, suppose last game I played was like No Mercy or something, way back when. How would you sort of describe the fundamental gameplay of your game for those guys watching that are like, what is this? I haven't heard about wrestling games in forever.
That's a really good question. That's a really good question.
I mean, you guys are moving back into more grapple-based system.
We're definitely a simulation game. We look at programming and try to replicate as much as we can, and not just the moves that they're doing or the grapple system, but really just the vibe flow that you get, the flow of a match. So we look at that really heavily for inspiration. So I think it's a true simulation. We try to make it, make it so you can have epic matches or you can have quick matches. We try to have different options in there to vary up your experience, but I think really we just try to be true to the
true to the sport, yeah. And I think it's obviously with it being a wrestling game, I mean just the flow and the balance of the progression during the match. Using your smaller moves and eventually building up to your bigger, more impactful moves. Being able to tell that story, as it were, through the course of the match.
That's an interesting thing because with No Mercy, I mean, I keep bringing this up, but it's one of those things that people remember the most. You had light and strong grapples.
Right.
You guys have done something a little differently here. It's actually basic chain grappling where you can kind of go into different positions, but then there's also like a groggy grapple, basically, right? And that sort of replaces the heavy.
Exactly. It's more of a just a situational based grappling system. If you grapple a non-groggy opponent, obviously you'll get into a chain hold, and from there you basically are able to do your kind of middle of the road attacks, basic suplexes, hip tosses, whatnot. And as the match wears on, your opponent, whether you lift them off the ground or you perform like a successful strike combo, as they get more damage, they'll be able to transition into this groggy state. So those grapples will trigger different, a more powerful grapple attack, the power bombs, the DDTs. So it just creates a nice, realistic flow. So you're not being able to just boot up a match and all of a sudden just start pulling off your biggest move in your moveset. You kind of got to build up and work to that. So and again, I just think it makes it that much more, representative of the sport, of sports entertainment, of wrestling.
You'll be able to see that they're groggy, and there's a stun state that plays. So you know that if you're able to pull off a grapple move on that stun state, you're going to pull off your groggy grapples. So I mean, like Brian says, we're just trying to replicate the real flow that you find in a match, where you don't see those bigger moves pulled off until later in the match when the guys are really worn down and damaged. Now this is an epic match because it's Brock Lesnar versus Primo.
This is Epico. How dare you? Epico. Everybody gives me a hard time for being such a Daniel Bryan lover. I'm showing, hey, I like other guys on the roster as well. Epico is one guy that I use quite a bit.
I'm pretty sure Epico can beat Brock.
I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, he's about to right now.
We'll see what happens. See, the funny thing is that you guys don't know is every time there's a WWE event, I play Brian in a match.
I see why I have to bring that.
And I think, what am I, 4-1 now? I think I lost once, maybe. So I don't know if Epico has a chance here.
And it's funny because that one win that I do have under my belt was, I think it was when we were playing WWE12. And you hadn't yet, wrapped your, gotten the controls down.
Yeah.
So I kind of took advantage of
exactly.
Of that.
Although I will admit to a couple times turning up my finisher count and just basically doing like a Stone Cold Stunner on you basically immediately, or
look at that.
a GTS. There we go. So one thing to sort of promote while you guys are playing is we've got some giveaways for you guys watching at home. We're doing 5 sets of WWE merch, basically. We've got Rock versus Cena, once in a lifetime, 3-disc set. So we've got that. We've got copies of WWE 13, so you can win one of these bad boys. And then we've also actually got a WWE 13 sweatshirt here. Really cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, they're actually really nice. So what you need to do, and it's a little bit complicated, so make sure you follow all these steps. First off, you must be following the IGN account on Twitter. That's at IGN, because we need to be able to direct message you if you've won. Next thing you need to do, you send a tweet to @IGN with the hashtag WWE13. Ask your question, make them nice, make them civil, something you would ask your mom maybe, something you would ask Corey or Brian, although I suspect you guys ask some pretty harsh questions to Corey. So, but yeah, so send in your questions throughout the live stream. We'll be answering them as we can, either on the live stream or just after, depending if I can actually get a wireless signal in here. But regardless, we'll be giving away 5 sets of the stuff you just saw. Right around the live stream. So think of your questions, ask away. We'll be getting into a lot of details throughout the entire show. But start thinking of them, start sending them in, and we'll pick 5 of the coolest and get Corey and Brian to answer them. And maybe you can win something cool. So let's talk about a couple more gameplay systems you have in here for the folks that haven't been completely following at home.
Yes.
Oh wow, just powerbombed him away, right?
Yeah.
Triple powerbomb?
Triple powerbomb. Brock Lesnar's the beast in this game.
Let's talk about submissions briefly. You guys implemented last year a whole new breaking point system.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how that works.
So a breaking point system is it's kind of like a tried and true button mashing based system, where you hold the A button when you're in any situation to do a grapple or to do for combat. You just hold the A button, and you'll be able to slap on one of these cool breaking points, and you basically just press the face buttons to apply pressure. At the same time, the defenders trying to press the same buttons to defend against the submissions. And it's just a great compliment to our limb target system.
Sure.
Being able to work a body part. Oh, he's got me one. Oh, no!
Oh, there we go.
Oh, no, Epic.
So basically, Brian's trying to mash his buttons, and I think he... Oh, no, he got it.
Oh, he's letting me out. He's letting me out.
Give Brian a fair shot.
Oh, look at that. But yeah, it's a great system. It's, like you said, we made the change in WWE12. And we've made some improvements to it. There's a lot more of a actual, back and forth tug of war.
Right.
It's much more, well represented in this year's game as opposed to 12, where in 12 it kind of, you put the submission on whether early or late, and there really was no, chance that if I use it early, I'll be able to put out any damage, and if I use it late, I have an opportunity to actually, get out of the situation.
Sure.
So we've made a lot of improvements and refinements to that.
We also made some, several improvements to the game as far as more advanced things that Brian's kind of talking about as well. You don't necessarily have to do those to win your matches, but we have new things like leverage pin in there.
Leverage
pin. We'll be able to show that off. We're showing off one of these OMG moments too. You could do finisher moves on top of the announcer table. He's going to do a...
Nice. Yeah, so let's talk about the OMG moments, because that's actually something you guys specifically implemented this year. You guys are basically trying to recreate some of the craziest moments of WWE, ring busting, through the barricades, that sort of stuff.
Catch finishers.
Tell me a little bit, about why you did it and how it works within the game.
I think one of the things we were talking about doing is basically having environmental finishers is kind of the way we looked at it. Superstars use the environment in so many different ways now to do really cool spots.
Sure.
And so we wanted to recreate those, obviously, in the game. So we kind of took a look at it from that standpoint. What parts of the environment can we use to have finishers and have cool moves? So obviously the barricade came about, the announcer table was something the fans have been asking for us to bring back in the game.
Yeah.
So we're excited about bringing that back in there. Of course, there's been big spots like superplexes that have collapsed the ring and things like that. We thought visually that'd be so cool to get in the game and a fun thing to do. And so I think that was really the true inspiration behind it. How can we get those cool spots in the game?
Yeah, just the jaw-dropping moments. I mean, because we're all fans. When we watch Raw and pay-per-views, and we're seeing. Oh! Like that was a spectacular moment right there. Brock Lesnar going to the top. But just creating these unpredictable moments that occur during gameplay that are outside of the norm.
Right.
That things that that you may not see them in every match, but when you see them, they just pack that extra bit of oomph to them.
Right.
And really create a lasting memory.
And they extend to everything. I mean, barricade busting moves, ring busting, to mid-air RKOs, right? Is that part of it too?
That's part of our catch finishes.
So it's actually character specific as well as location, environment specific too.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Do we think Epico's going to pull this? I don't know. Epico's going for just doing basic knees here. I mean, come on, come on.
Like, we go for the
Brock
win?
has done multiple. Yeah, go for the win.
Here we go.
Let's
Oh! There's the lever spin right there.
That was awesome. Nice. All right, so let's actually jump out of this because I want to get into sort of the heart of what you guys have done with this year's product, and that's actually the Attitude Era.
I know. I'm so close to a victory.
I saw you were getting close, and I was like, oh, it's time to move on.
That's cold-blooded.
Deprive you of your win.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. That's fine. So Attitude Era mode. While you guys are sort of jumping into the mode here, explain to me why you guys decided to go with the Attitude Era as sort of the core single-player experience this time around.
It's all UCL.
Yeah, what I've been telling people is that the last 4 or 5 years we've done this Road to WrestleMania format, telling original fiction that we've worked with the WWE to create, and we wanted to keep the product fresh, and we felt that format was getting a little bit stale. So we thought, how great would it be to do a retrospective look at some time period in WWE and do that kind of approach for the format. And so when you start thinking about that, obviously the first thing that comes to your mind as far as the most popular time in WWE history is the Attitude Era. We knew fans would be excited about hearing that era being in the game. It obviously comes with a great roster, so that's a great reason to have it in there as well. And we thought there were such great moments that took place during that time that it would be so fun to have the player relive those moments. And it was kind of a perfect storm because Raw was doing the Raw 1000 episode. We knew that was coming up. They were going to highlight a lot of those great Raw episodes.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of, and CM Punk on the cover, that helps it as well because he kind of embodies this different attitude he brings.
Modern revolution
New
of sorts.
attitude
And
new
attitude.
Exactly. So we just thought it was kind of perfect to do that. So it was kind of a no-brainer.
One of the cool things you guys have in here, and maybe we can show it while we're talking more about the mode, is just the actual archival footage from WWE. Maybe we can show like the first
So
video.
we have this menu completely unlocked here.
Yeah. A lot of this is locked. Spoilers if you guys don't know anything about the Attitude Era. Yeah.
We just wanted to unlock it so we could showcase a lot of this. These special features that we're talking about. There is a video archive option on the screen that you can access, and as you're playing through the mode, you'll have these videos pop up before matches, and they kind of give you a background story, history on what's going on within this feud. And so what's cool is that as you watch them, you do get to unlock them in this archive, and you can come back at any time and watch the videos. And we have over 20 videos to unlock, and they're all exclusively created by the WWE, which they're phenomenal at creating these videos.
Can you boot one up? Maybe like just the first one, so it's not too much of a spoiler for folks.
Absolutely. Here's the opening.
This is what's shown when you first start the mode Attitude.
Right.
You'll be greeted with this cool.
It actually goes. And what I like is it's like a time machine basically. It's showing off all the modern era stuff here within the last few years or so, and then it sort of like warps you back to where it all began in some ways. So the thing I love so much about this mode too is that you can see so much of modern day, you can see its roots. You can see how all this foundation was laid 15 years ago. And for guys like us, we were watching. It got us into wrestling, and/or it was sort of one of those high points of wrestling to us. And but then there's lots of folks. It's weird to me to think because one of my key responsibilities at IGN is Nintendo coverage, and it's weird to me to think of there are people born that read our work that maybe never played Mario 64, or they were just born when Mario 64 came out or something like that.
So you start feeling old, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's weird to me to think that there are some folks that weren't watching wrestling when this was
weren't
happening.
alive when this was going on.
That was something we worried about actually a little bit. I mean, we weren't super worried about it, but
you have to be able to frame it within that context, right?
We didn't want to leave out the younger audience that maybe have no idea about this or haven't watched a lot of these old matches, that they can still find out what the Attitude Era is all about. And more importantly, these Monday Night Wars. This is what it's talking about. Why the WWE had to go up against WCW and what that whole conflict was, and the big ratings conflict that was going on. Just really learning about that history, because it catapulted the WWE to these new heights that we're seeing now. Production values have changed over the course of time, and you start to see that. And when you flash back, you kind of get this more gritty presentation of what the WWE was back then. It's kind of cool to see that and see how far it's grown.
Yeah, it's interesting because you can even watch the evolution both in the game and through the video packages of like when they just use simple metal bars for their ring barricades, and then it gets a little bit better and a little bit better. They even used to have dudes surrounding the ring with all these cameras. You don't see that anymore.
And that's
right. You don't see that.
That was something we were really excited about recreating the game too. I mean, every single arena that used the steel bars versus that foam barricade pad, we replicated that, and even when they were using the block logo versus the scratch logo, well, every single match we looked to see exactly what they were using, and we wanted to replicate that. And so you'll see some time periods where they're using a hybrid of some scratch and some block logos because they haven't fully did the conversion over, and so we even show that off as well. And so we were really meticulous with the detail. I know I've been talking about it before, but small things like the color of the chairs, the ladders, and things like that.
And even the shirts and the signs that are in the audience too, actually. And I mean, you can actually do that, and we'll get to more of this later in sort of when we talk about creation modes. But you can actually select like, do I want them having modern signs or Attitude Era signs in the shirts and that sort of stuff too. You can,
little details that matter.
One of the things I was curious about is, I mean, you guys have. We've seen some THQ games in the past incorporate WWE footage that they've worked with you guys on, but it seems like this is such a it's such a bigger scale than before. How does that work? How do you guys figure out? I mean, because WWE, in my mind, makes the best video packages.
Oh yeah.
Easy. I mean, I like football, I like all these things, but like WWE, because everything is based on that. Like everything is based on how they present these two guys. Oh, here you can see the sort of the rating lines working here, and you can see that just WWE or WCW is just dominating.
2 years straight period that they did. And you see, we highlight when NWO was formed because that's really that point that they took off. And so it's important. So we dropped those little milestones to show you what was going on.
And then as you sort of play through the game, that sort of the ratings lines, sort of expands throughout as you play through the game.
Right. We showed it all the way up to the end when the Monday Night Wars ended, and so you get to see the exact point in which WWE started to take over in the ratings. It's kind of cool. You get to play that match and kind of push it over and things like that.
And then the video packages weave in, and you even have some history descriptions here that get into a little more detail for whatever specific match you're doing, as well as just a little more context that the video package might not get into. So let's talk about, we'll get into the working with WWE in a second, but I want to bring this up here. Historical bonus objectives. This is a major new thing that you guys kind of worked into this mode to, obviously you guys are trying to recreate history, but there's a limit to which you can do that and control the player experience. So tell me a little bit about where this came from and how you decided to implement it.
Well, some of the feedback that we received last year with Road to WrestleMania was some of the objectives kind of took control away from you and just ended the match. You could have just been beating down your opponent and you press one button and you get DQ'd, or something happened where the victory was taken away from you. And we felt that wasn't obviously a very fun or satisfying experience. It worked for telling the story, but it's not all about telling the story. You want to have fun playing the matches.
Game as well.
So we set it up so that you don't have to recreate history. If you want to just simply win the match, that's always the basic objective, win the match. And if you do that, you'll successfully unlock the next match and you can keep progressing forward. But the historical bonus objectives are set there for these additional objectives you can try to achieve in the match. These are things that actually happen in the match. They're completely optional, and if you do accomplish them, we reward you with cool bonus cutscenes that happen during that match. We reward you with all the unlockables. So there's a lot of cool things that you get by completing the bonus objectives. And this is the match I just loaded up is a bonus match actually. So you've unlocked this for completing all the historical bonus objectives in the previous match. So there's all these bonus matches that you get to play. So we'll hop into this. And this is a match with Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Do Love.
And you can even see just the basic stuff like the set design, the fact that they're coming through like that sort of cloth backdrop. It's
a huge monster font that appeared up there. The old
Triple H might look a little different than we're used to now too. kind of.
This is my favorite entrance music. I love the Die Hard, Ode to Joy.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Well, and you know what's funny is you look at how Triple H is decked out here, and you can't help but think of modern day someone like Damien Sandow, who kind of does this, and you just see those echoes, you know, and I love seeing that sort of thing. So actually, let's get to our first viewer question, and it sort of applies to what we're doing here as well as the entire scope of what you guys do for a living, actually. Jonah of the Sea asks, do you approach do you approach the WWE games like sports games, and how do you capture the larger-than-life feel of the show?
Oh,
that's a big question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
We definitely look at some sports aspects as far as the competition that happens in the game, and then also our fans like stat tracking that you find in sports games. They like career modes or season modes and things like that you get to play. So we definitely look at that as inspiration. But WWE is sports and entertainment, so there's this whole entertainment side of things that come into play.
Really got to just combine, you know, the two halves. And one thing I love about our game, as opposed to, you know, a regular, you know, WWE event or match, which I love. But the one thing that I always tell my friends or anybody who's interested in playing this game is that, because everybody will bring up, oh, but it's scripted, right? It's fake, right? And I was like, well, you know, maybe there's a predetermined outcome, but you know what? When you play our matches, it has that sport feel because there's a winner and a loser, and you know, it's up to you. Yeah. You know, it's like when I play this game, I'm playing to win. Yeah. You know, so I mean, it's definitely taking both halves of the you know, sports feel of professional wrestling, but still at the same time, like Corey said, you can't forget about the entertainment aspect of it. It's a huge component of all wrestling.
Speaking of entertainment right here, I loved that you guys did this. You guys recreated Mick's 3-persona interview with himself. You know, and what's interesting is you guys even foreshadow, the game doesn't go this far, it ends approximately at WrestleMania 15, but you guys do a little bit of foreshadowing with Cactus Jack and Triple H that happens about a year and a half after this game ends. But I forgot that he did this. That's what I loved about this mode so much, was I completely forgot that Mick sat down, and consider that this is like in 1998-ish, somewhere in there, 99. And they're doing this like 3-person interview where Mick is sort of talking to himself.
I think if people play this, they'll think, you know, they aren't familiar with this promo, that this is some video game type of recreation. We did that. You're exactly right. They did that production that way back then. It was awesome. Yeah. But this is something you totally forgot about, but we brought it back to life here, and it's hugely entertaining because Mick Foley's awesome.
Well, to be honest, I forgot about it myself, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching it on like an old VHS of Mick's or something like that, way back in the VHS.
VHS, but I mean, we're really dating ourselves.
Here's what's amazing about this whole thing to me too, is that, you know, and I was someone who watched a lot of this. I'd actually have friends tape it for me and give them to me because I didn't have cable, but what's fascinating is you guys only cover about 2 years span, give or take, right? 2 to 3.
It's a little bit less than 2 years, but yeah, about 2 years.
And if you just think about it, like when Mick first shows up in your Attitude Era mode, he's in brown Mankind, like dark, twisted blue lighting, kind of more Undertaker mold. By the end of this, it's crazy Mick with the sock, with the car crash sound, and you even get to see the music change throughout the movie.
His whole evolution, which is really cool. And we do everything. We update the music, the movie, his entrance animation's different. And so you get to see that whole evolution of Mick Foley, and it's really cool. And you know, a lot of people ask us, why do you have 3 versions of Triple H, or why do you have 3 versions of Mick Foley? And it's to show that evolution, because these characters did change over that time period, and we want you to see how they did get molded and changed.
And they were different enough that they warranted being an actual separate character as opposed to being an alternate attire.
Right.
You know, I mean, the characters were that different.
I mean, Dude Love acts differently than Cactus.
Cactus
like
Jack,
Cactus does Bang Bang, Dude Love does the I don't even know what that's called.
The Charleston Shuffle. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what's amazing to me is that, and it doesn't feel like modern day wrestling has this as much as just the rapid evolution that they were going through. They were like, we gotta keep up with WCW.
Exactly, just that competition was driving them.
You know, Triple H is this sort of like snob guy. That doesn't work. DX, boom, there you go. You're off on DX now. You know, and it's fascinating to kind of see this sort of. It sort of plays out in front of your eyes when you're doing this. You actually get to relive it, which I think is really, really cool. Let's get back to actually working with WWE on things like this. How do you guys, you know, particularly with the footage, but then also just in general, like how do you guys coordinate with them? I mean, like when you need a video package that encapsulates the Attitude Era, do you guys go back and be like, please give us this, please edit this together, or do they come to you with ideas, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we wrote the entire script of the matches we wanted to cover, and so they had that script to work with, and we detailed out which video packages we would like them to kind of highlight throughout the story.
Sure.
But we didn't get nitty-gritty about which pieces of footage from which matches or anything like that to show. We want to leave all that magic to them. Obviously, they're the pros at that. So we kind of gave them a high-level outline of the things that we wanted to cover, and then they just ran with it, and they do what they do great. And made these great packages. Yeah. So we kind of, it was definitely a collaboration. We set the groundwork or the outline, and they do a lot of the producing videos.
Now, how do you determine? I mean, obviously, some of the matches make sense, right? You're going to have Rock and Austin at WrestleMania 15, because obviously.
Yeah.
But how do you determine what other matches you're going to have in here? How did you decide you want Dude Love, Cactus Jack, Triple H, that sort of stuff? Like, how do you pick? I mean, some of them make perfect sense. Some of them, like you guys had Shawn versus Bulldog over when they went over into England, and like I thought that was interesting because I'm like, oh wow, of all the legacy of the Attitude Era, that's an interesting match to pick. I mean, obviously it's an amazing match, but how do you decide that match versus something else that Shawn did?
Well, we figured we should break it up into chapters. And so you see the big chapters, we had those 6 chapters, and we thought, let's start from there and let's try to cover the biggest names then, the biggest feuds that were going on, and see if we can kind of group them in together. Of course, storylines were all being interwoven throughout the whole 2-year span, so we wanted to keep it so they were going in kind of chronological order.
Yeah.
So we thought that would be great to have bonus matches as you're going through the main chapters. Hey, you'll take a little break. We'll give you a little side story that was going on at the time. You get to enjoy that as kind of a break from the main chapter you're working on.
Right.
So I think once we took that approach, everything started to fall into line. It was like, oh yeah, well, DX was a big deal at this point. That was the main storyline that was going on.
Right.
And then that started to fizzle out, and then it went into something else. And so we were able to kind of look at it in that regard.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting how you guys are able to just be like, oh, by the way, X-Pac and Kane were teaming up over here, or or like, for example, in the history of DX, this isn't necessarily like one of those key pivotal matches, and yet it's one of those moments that, for me, being a huge Mick Foley fan, I'm like, oh, I remember when he did that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of it also, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, I mean, this is Corey's baby right here.
Yeah.
This was his mode. I mean, I think, the matches that were selected also was just, pick matches that would fit in terms of being replicated for gameplay purposes.
Sure.
Matches that we could authentically replicate via gameplay, and create an interactive experience out of that.
Absolutely, and there was just big moments you knew you had to have. King of the Ring, Undertaker, Foley, Hell in a Cell. Like, you had to have that match in there. So there's a bunch of obvious ones, like you mentioned, WrestleMania 15 or WrestleMania 14 for that matter. We wanted to have those in there. So those kind of milestone points really helped us out, and we filled it in with the other matches that kind of told the story before those.
Now, if we can, I would actually like to jump back out to the Attitude Era mode. I want to show people a little bit of the unlockables that you guys have. You mentioned the videos. We mentioned there's some hidden superstars, but there's some other really, really cool things. And if I tell you that you can view hundreds of photos of wrestling, you might, especially in this era of like YouTube and video, you might be like, that's not as exciting. But I sat there and like looked at every single one. Can we show like people just a couple of the photos? I mean, we don't have to show them all. But like, what you're looking at here is just like, how many are there? Do you know? Like over 100?
I think there's about 140, 150, I want to say.
Yeah, and it just pinpoints the day, even the day, the match, and the
first ever Hell in a Cell, so you get to see that, and then of course there's big moments like Kane's debut here, and you get to see. It's really cool to see the photos.
Which we cover in Attitude Era. Kane's debut.
Yeah. Most of these are matches that you play through in the game. But it's just cool. I don't know. There's something so cool. It's like a moment in time. This is Vince with Sarge.
Yeah.
I love that. And you can even see like back in the day when Vince and Sarge would just sit along a guardrail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. So anyway, this is stuff that unlocks as you play through too.
Yeah, lots of cool photos.
Yeah, it's a lot. We have a lot of photos in there.
There's tons. And for every chapter, for every character, there's the infamous beer truck on the way to WrestleMania 15 there.
Vince was swimming in the ring.
I mean, it's funny. Right. Vince is around now and still on TV and stuff like that, but few villains in the history of WWE were as good as Vince back then. I mean, you just lived to see what Stone Cold or even Rock, depending on when the feud was going on. You can see here unlockable characters, arenas, championships.
It's really jam-packed with a lot of stuff. These are all the bonus matches I was talking about. So there's 16 bonus matches you've seen there. On top of that, a lot of people are asking about what this mystery chapter is right here. And again, for spoilers, if you don't want to, you better
close your eyes.
Mute it or something. But this is a bonus chap that you get to unlock once you complete every single match within the main storyline. It's really cool because then we cover some of these other superstars that maybe weren't having a major story or a feud going on at that time, but they're obviously huge parts of the Attitude Era. Guys like the Godfather, Edge and
Vader,
creation of SmackDown in general.
The very first SmackDown, which is really cool. So we wanted fans to still get a taste of some of these other superstars. Chris Jericho making his debut, and have fun doing that. So this is kind of a chapter all bonus matches you get to unlock. It's really cool.
So I'm going to get to another reader question. And it has to deal with sort of some of the gameplay aspects again. Mark Peeler, 84,
Mark
wants to know, and I'll sort of paraphrase slightly here, but he wants to know about backstage battling and sort of through the crowd battling and that sort of stuff. And I imagine, in addition to trying to recreate the overall tone and the sort of aesthetic of WWE, you guys have to wrestle with ideas like that. Do we battle into the crowd? Do we battle backstage? You guys have done it in the past.
Right.
So what was your approach this year, and kind of how walk me through that sort of decision-making process in terms of whether you had backstage battling or not?
There's definitely backstage battling. There's an important part of the WWE, and so.
And I think our fans really enjoy it as well. Like, it's a pretty popular match type in the game.
And we kind of streamline it. I mean, when you do go fight backstage, there's a lot of hot spots that you can throw your opponent into, and they trigger these cool kind of
environmental-based grapple attacks.
That's right.
And we have instead of we've got this new throwing mechanic that we use in the backstage brawl. So instead of Irish whipping your opponent, you'll basically just kind of grab them on the back of their neck, chuck them into a wall or into a vending machine. So it's a different play mechanic in the backstage brawls this year, and much more I think fuller experience than we had in 12. And which is one thing obviously what happens in the ring. The wrestling, the gameplay, we wanted to have that be completely different from when you're in a backstage setting because it's not a typical, wrestling match. You're basically just trying to beat the hell out of each other. So we've got this cool throwing mechanic. You can just basically go in there, throw people through glass windows.
And it feels like a different match type or different experience.
It's a different experience.
Awesome. So you jumped right in here, so let's get right into it. Universe mode. You guys have made a bunch of improvements. I mean, this is one of those interesting things because as much as there's a single player, there's the story mode, Attitude Era, that certainly is on the minds of some gamers. We also have something like this, which is just keeps on going, infinite customization. So we'll get to another reader question, actually, the Ginger side.
I love these names.
I love Twitter usernames. What is the biggest improvement to Universe mode for WWE 13?
Oh, wow.
It's a big open-ended question.
It is. I mean, obviously.
I mean, some of them are so